Good morning, everyone. Sorry, it's good afternoon. Uh, so, in the last lecture, we were discussing about the preemptive scheduling and race run conditions, preemptive and non-preemptive scheduling, and we have discussed the CP scheduler. Uh, I'm just reminding you about the preemptive and non-preemptive scheduling. Preemptive means whenever you are having so many processes and you want to switch your CPU among different processes in such a way that before completion of a process, you are taking it out from the CPU and you are assigning a new process to that CPU. That is preemptive. Non-preemptive means non-breakable process. Non-breakable means whenever you are starting a process, it will be removed from the CPU when it is completed. In between, you cannot remove that process from CPU. So in that way, if you want to achieve multi-programming, you should be able to achieve that preemptive scheduling. So what is the role of a dispatcher? Dispatcher role we have already discussed. The dispatcher means that particular software that is going to select a process from the ready queue and it will be providing the CPU to that particular process. Dispatcher module gives control of the CPU to the process selected by the CPU scheduler. This involves switching context, switching to user mode, jumping to the proper location in the user program to restart the program. Now, all these three things we can understand with this diagram. Suppose P0 process is currently executing and you want that P1 should execute now. So you should be removing this P0 from the CPU. For removing this, you need to save the current state of this P0, that is PCB0. Then you are again restoring the state from PCB1, that is for process P1. So you need to do two different tasks. First, you are going to save the current state of the running process. Then you are picking up the actual state of the next process, whatever you want to run in your system. So it will take some time, and this time is known as the dispatch latency. Dispatch latency means time for removing a process and introducing a new process to the CPU. Dispatch latency means time it takes for the dispatcher to stop one process and start another running. That is a dispatch latency. So we need to minimize this time, that is minimization of dispatch latency. Now CPU scheduling criteria. Now whenever we are talking about CPU scheduling, that means which process is going to run next. You are going to make a schedule. So in your schedule, what should be the criteria for making a good schedule? Which schedule you will be saying that this schedule is perfect? So there are some tools for judging that scheduling, whether the scheduling criteria scheduling is better or not. So you should be using these five terms. These terms will be very important. If you can't understand these terms, then you can't perform, you can't solve any kind of problem, numerical. First one is CPU utilization. Keep the CPU as busy as possible. That is the major part of our system. We want our CPU as busy as possible. Means for every time there must be a process on that CPU. Suppose some processes are there who are waiting for execution and they can't run even if the CPU is free. That is not desirable. Then the throughput, number of processes that complete their execution per unit of time. Throughput should be high. We can say that 10 number of processes we can execute within a second. 20 number of process we can execute within a second. So 20 number of process will be better. More the number of processes you are completing per unit time, that will be good for you. Then the turnaround time. These three times, especially these two times, are very important. Turnaround time is a time, amount of time to execute a particular process. Means suppose some process P is coming at time 0 and it is finishing at time 15, so your turnaround time will be 15. When the process is coming and when the process is exiting the system, time between coming and exiting is the turnaround time. Then the waiting time, amount of time a process has been waiting in the ready queue. Waiting time means suppose a process is coming at 0, a process is exiting at 15. In this time, in this duration, it is not possible that this particular process is always running. There might be a case that this process is waiting in the ready queue and some other process is running. So how much time it is waiting in the ready queue, that means waiting time. There might be a case that it is waiting for 10 seconds in between 0 to 15. So its waiting time will be 10 milliseconds. Delay time will be in milliseconds for a process. Then the response time, amount of time it takes from when a request was submitted until the first response is produced. Response time is nothing. Whenever we are double clicking on any particular program, then in what time it is going to convert into a process. That is the response time. That is not exactly required further, but turnaround time and waiting time you should be very much aware about. Optimization criteria for scheduling algorithm. Maximum CPU utilization should be there. Maximum throughput should be there. Turnaround time should be less. Suppose a process is coming at time 0, if it is exiting at time 15 and if it is exiting at time 20, so exiting at time 15 will be better. Minimum turnaround time will win. Minimum waiting time should be there. No more waiting should be there. Minimum response time should be there. So you need to think about these times. Here in throughput and utilization it should be maximum. In other times turnaround, waiting and response time it should be minimum. Now we are looking at our first type of numerical, first type of scheduling algorithm, that is very basic. First come, first serve scheduling algorithm, also known as FCFS scheduling algorithm. First you should know it is a non-preemptive scheduling algorithm. Non-preemptive. Non-preemptive means non-breakable. If a process is running, we cannot remove that process from the CPU. It will execute until the termination of that particular process. And the name is first come, first serve scheduling algorithm. It is always non-preemptive. Whenever we are talking about FCFS, always non-preemptive. So in this numerical, we are having three different processes, P1, P2 and P3. Their burst time are 24, 3 and 3. Burst time means the execution time. P1 requires 24 units of time for its complete execution. This burst time means the CPU burst time. CPU burst time means how much time this particular process needs to run on the CPU. It requires 24 units of time to run over the CPU. It requires 3 units of time. It also requires 3 units of time. Suppose that the processes arrive in order P1, P2 and P3. Suppose that P1 arrives in the system first, then P2 arrives, then P3 arrives. These are coming in this order, P1, then P2, then P3. Because all these three processes cannot come in the system at a time. These must be coming one after another. So we are assuming that P1 is coming first, then P2, then P3 is coming. So we need to maintain a schedule according to the first come first serve scheduling algorithm. So how we are managing? First, which particular process comes? P1. Because it's a first come first serve scheduling, which process is coming first is to be executed first. The second process will be executed second. The third process will be executed in the last. So first you are starting P1. P1, how much time it will take? 24 units of time. So if we are assuming that we are starting from 0, it will end up at 24 because 24 units of time it will take. Then process P2 is coming at 24. Process P2 is coming at 24. How much time it will take? 3 units of time. So it will complete at 27. It will take 3 units of time and P2 will come after P1. We are not going to divide or remove this particular process because it's a non-preemptive scheduling. P1 will execute until it finishes its execution. So P2 will take 3 units of time, then P3 will come, P3 will come and it will again take 3 units of time, that is 27 to 30. This type of diagram, whatever you are managing, this type of schedule is known as Gantt chart. It is a Gantt chart. So how you are managing the length? Generally, uh, in this ratio, the time you are providing to the different process, you are managing the length of this particular block. It is not fixed. You may draw it like this: P1 0 to 24, then you are managing P2 24 to 27, then you are managing 27 to 30, that is P3. You can also draw a Gantt chart like this, but it will be better if you are managing the length according to their different times. If the time is high, your length should be more. Now, this is the Gantt chart. This is not the final answer what we want. What we want is average waiting time and average turnaround time. So first we are calculating the waiting time. Waiting time for P1. When the P1 is coming in the system, if their arrival times are not given, we can assume that all the three processes are coming in the system at time 0. So when this process is coming at time 0, when this process is completing its execution at time 24, in between 0 to 24, how much time it is not having the CPU? It is coming at 0, it is finishing at 24. How much time it is not having the CPU? For the full time, for the entire duration between 0 to 24, it is having the CPU. That means the waiting time of P1 is 0. It is coming at 0. It is finishing at 24. In between 0 to 24, it is always executing. That's why it is waiting time is 0. Now P2. P2 is coming at 0 because all three are coming at 0. P2, when P2 is terminating, 27. In between 0 to 27, how much time P2 is not executing? P2 is executing from 24 to 27 and P2 is coming at 0. So how much time P2 is not executing? Till 0 to 24, it is not executing. That's why waiting time for process P2 is 24 this time. P3, for P3 we are checking. P3 is also coming at time 0. P3 is finishing at time 30. In between 0 to 30, how much time P3 is not executing? P3 is executing only between 27 to 30. 0 to 27, it is not executing. That's why 27 is the waiting time for process P3. Now average waiting time means you are going to add all the three waiting times, then you will be dividing it by 3 because there are 3 processes. So 17 will be the average waiting time. We need to minimize this waiting time. Now, one more thing is there, the turnaround time. Turn around time. I am writing here TAT. Turnaround time is nothing but the starting and finishing duration, the time between starting and terminating, you can say. Turnaround time for P1 will be, when P1 is coming in the system, 0. When P1 is completing its execution, 24. 0 to 24, how much time it takes? 24. Turnaround time for P2, when P2 is coming in the system, at time 0. When P2 is completing its execution, 27. How much time it takes in the system? 0 to 27, that is total time, 27. Then P3 is coming at 0. P3 is completing at 30. How much time it is taking total? 30. So these are the turnaround times for these three processes. If you want to take the average, then average turnaround time will be 24 plus 27 plus 30 divided by 3. And you can find the average turnaround time. Suppose that in the last question, we are changing the order. Now process P2 is coming first, then P3 is coming, then P1 is coming. These are the orders of the process. Now, how will you prepare the Gantt chart for this schedule? P2 will be executing first, then P3 will be executing, then P1 will be executing. P2, how much time it will take? 3, 0 to 3. Then P3 will start 3 to 6. It will also take 3 units of time. Then after 6, P1 is coming. How much time it will take? P1 is taking 24 units of time. So 6 to 24, it will complete at 30. So you have changed the order of arrival. Now, if you find the waiting time for P1 will be P1 is coming at 0. All the processes are coming at 0. P1 is coming at 0, completing at 30. In between 0 to 30, how much time P1 is not running? P1 is running from 6 to 30. How much time P1 is not running? 0 to 6, it is not running. That means waiting time for P1 is 6. Then waiting time for P2. P2 is coming at 0. P2 is terminating at 3. From 0 to 3, how much time P2 is not running? P2 is running all the time from 0 to 3. That means waiting time for P2 is 0. Now P3 is coming at 0. P3 is exiting at system from 6 at 6. Now from in between 0 to 6, how much time P3 is not running? In between 0 to 6. 0 to 3, P3 is not running. That means 3 units of time P3 is not running. Waiting time for P3 is 3. Now if you want to take the average of these three, it will come 3. In the last question, it was coming 17. Now it is coming 3. That means the this particular schedule is better. If the processes are arriving in this order, that will be very good for you because you will be reducing the average waiting time. It is known as the convoy effect. Short process behind long process is known as convoy effect. Consider one CPU wind and many IO wind processes that we will discuss later also. So here you can see all the times are same, but you are just changing the order of arrival. FCFS means first come first serve. Which process is coming first is to be executed first. All the processes are coming at time 0, but even coming at time equal to 0, there should be some order. In what order they are coming? P1 is coming first or the P2 is coming first. So there should be some order. Suppose sharp at 10 a.m. you have scheduled 3 different lectures from a Zoom meeting. Sharp at 10 a.m. So you have scheduled all the 3 Zoom meetings at sharp at 10, but there might be a case, there will be a case, you in your system, there will be some uh, order that first meeting you are scheduling for section A, then second meeting you are scheduling for section C, then third meeting you are scheduling for section B. There might be a case, there will be a case exactly. You cannot start 3 different applications simultaneously. There will be some time gap. That time gap will be deciding the order of arrival of these processes. Now the shortest job first scheduling algorithm. This is the second algorithm and the important algorithm. Scheduling job first, shortest job first means which process is having the shortest execution time, you will prefer that process first. Here you are not compelled to use that process according to the arrival. Here you are compelled to use the processes according to their execution times. Associate with each process the length of its next CPU burst. Use this length to schedule the process with the shortest time. SGF is optimal, gives minimum average waiting time for a given set of processes. This is the best algorithm we can have. But I will tell you later that this is not achievable. This is not uh, feasible. How do we determine the length of the next CPU burst? Could ask the user, and it will be based on the estimation. Now example of SGF. Suppose these are the four processes P1 to P4. Here are the burst times, that are CPU burst times, how much time it will take for running. If the arrival times are not given, that means all the processes are coming at time equal to 0. Okay, so if the processes are coming in this order P1, P2, P3, P4, if you were using FCFS, then obviously you are going to use P1 first, then P2, then P3, then P4. This will be the order in case of FCFS. But here you are talking about SJF, shortest job first. So you will prefer the different process according to their running time, CPU burst times. Which process is taking minimum time for running? Process P4. Second, which process will take less time? This one, P1. It will be second process you are going to execute. Then it will be third process you are going to execute. Then it will be the last one you are going to execute. Because according to their burst times, you are giving the priority. This will be having the highest priority because it is having the shortest execution time. Now if you want to prepare the Gantt chart, P4 will be coming first. P4 because it is having the lesser burst time. So it will be starting from 0 when it will be finishing 3 because it will take 3 units of time. Then P1 you are going to run. P1 will start from 3. How much time it will take? 6 units of time. So P1 will be finishing at 9. 3 plus 6, that means 9. Then P3 will be coming. It will take 7 units of time. From 9 you will be starting. 9 plus 7, that means 16. P3 will end up at 16. Then P2 will be coming at 16. P2 will take 8 units of time. That means P2 will end up at 24. Now average waiting time, if you want to calculate, the waiting time for P1. Waiting time for P1. P1 is coming at 0. P1 is finishing at 9. In between 0 to 9, how much time P2 is not executing? P2 is not executing in between 0 to 3. So 3 units is the waiting time for P1. Then P2 is coming at 0. P2 is finishing at 24. In between 0 to 24, how much time P2 is not executing? From 0 to 16, P2 is not executing. That means 16 is the waiting time for P2. P3, P3 is coming at 0. P3 is finishing at 16. In between 0 to 16, how much time P3 is not running? In between 0 to 9, that means 9 is the waiting time for P3. Then P4 is coming at 0. P4 is finishing at 3. In between 0 to 3, when P4 is not executing, P4 is executing for all the times in between 0 to 3. That means waiting time for P4 is 0. Then you are adding this 4 divided by 4. That means number of processes, it will give you 7. 7 is the waiting time, average waiting time for this scenario. But there are two cases in SGF. It may be preemptive and it may not be preemptive. It may be preemptive, it may be non-preemptive. Both the cases it may have. Which case we have checked here? It is the it is the non-preemptive one where you are not breaking your process. When one process is starting, it is executing until it finish. You are not breaking your process. Till now, whatever you have seen, you were thinking that these first times, whatever you can see here, for P4 waiting time is 0, for P1 waiting time is 3, for P3 waiting time is 9, for P2 waiting time is 16. Whatever written here is the waiting times. No, it's not exactly true, because it will be difficult for you to understand in the next problems. That's why I am not telling you that these are the waiting times. These are not the waiting times. Here it is coming the same as written here. So you should not assume that all the times it is a waiting time. If we are talking about the turnaround time for P1, that means when it is coming, when it is finishing, the total time duration in the system, P1. P1 total time duration is 9 because it is coming at 0, finishing at 9. P2, it will be 24. P3, 16. P4, 3. Time duration between coming into the system and exiting out of the system. So you can also see that you can say that whatever here we have written the numbers is the turnaround time for the processes, but it is not always true again. Here in the non-preemptive scheduling, you can say, you can easily see the turnaround time and the waiting time. But in the preemptive scheduling, it is not true.